So for sejarah, I am going to mention what I expect for the upcoming exam, and I'm also going to give a brief explanation on some things in this chapter. Bab 1 is the easiest one of all three, even though Bab 2 is a close second. But the thing is, right, I don't want people to look down on Bab 1 because Bab 1 does not have have essay. I mean, in our exams. If you're from another school, then sure, you can just study the whole thing. And I'm gonna tell you which part would be an essay question. But when it comes to Zhongjian and your exams, apparently Bab 1 has no essay. However, you do not want to look down on Bab 1 because Bab 1 subjective could catch you off guard and you could lose a lot of marks if you don't actually focus on Bab 1 that well. So the way you want to memorize sejarah isn't actually just by memorizing bulat-bulat, like just memorizing whatever you see in the book. You need to understand why it is so important to memorize. What is the significance of what you're memorizing? So, first of all, if you see the word maksud or takrif, normally that means it's very important. So, because of that, we need to memorize the takrif of kedaulatan. Especially because since we know that Bab 1 is going to be about subjective, normally subjective is where those maksud or takrif come from. So, I would recommend you to memorize takrif kedaulatan. I do not know if it's actually going to come out, but then here's my a guess based on past exam papers that I have since Junior 2, because Junior 1 had no essay. Junior 1, Junior 2. Most subjective questions have takrif, so you need to memorize takrif of kedaulatan. And I'm not just talking about the general meaning, kekuasaan tertinggi dan kewibawaan sesebuah negara yang bebas serta mempunyai hak untuk melaksanakan pemerintahan dan pentadbiran negara. You don't have to write the whole thing, though I will write the whole thing myself. So basically, kedaulatan, long story short, is basically the power that your people have over your country. So, for example, if British took over us, then we have no kedaulatan because British is negara asing and they took over us. We do not have power over our own country. But now we have power over our own country. We have a parliament, we have an agong, we have a prime minister. So that means we have kedaulatan now. We have people, we have the law, Perlembagaan Persekutuan, and we have our own borders and so on. So that is what kedaulatan is. It is our power over our own country. Another thing that might be slightly important would be that all of this came from Kesultanan Melayu Melaka. Later on, you will realize that Kedah came in first, but Melaka was the first one to be really successful and really respected by other countries. Kedah was basically its own little state for a while. But Melaka was later, but it was the more famous one. Now, since it's subjective, I bet there's going to be a question that will be about there will be a chart, and then they'll give you the name of the person, and then they'll ask you what the guy said. So there are two ways that this can come out. Either they're going to talk about takrif kedaulatan, or they're going to talk about the pandangan tokoh. So if they're talking about the takrif kedaulatan, they will say like, oh, Yunani is what is the kedaulatan in Yunani? What is kedaulatan in English? What is kedaulatan in Arab? So you need to memorize this. Super nus, super anus means the highest. Agung atau tertinggi. Inggris means sovereignty. Sovereignty means full control over pemerintahan. Which is what I said earlier. We have our control over our own country. Arab, daulah. Daulah is where actually daulat comes from. So daulah means kuasa pemerintahan sebuah kerajaan. And Melayu, the daulah is turned into daulat, which is kekuasaan tertinggi terhadap pemerintahan negara. So when it comes to this, you do not have to memorize one by one, unless it's like a few words, like for example, agong atau tertinggi. Just memorize what the words are, and then memorize what the general meaning of them are. Most of them have all similar meaning. Tertinggi, negara mempunyai kuasa penuh, kuasa pemerintahan kerajaan, and kekuasaan tertinggi terhadap negara. Pandangan tokoh is another one that could come out in this type of chart form. So it will be so I would recommend you to memorize both the names and also what they say, but not the whole thing. You do not have to write the whole thing of what they say. You just have to write the general topic of what they're saying. For example, Aristotle said that kedaulatan merupakan kuasa tertinggi dalam sistem pemerintahan. So, highest power, kuasa tertinggi. And then next, Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun said that it is based on semangat kekitaan. This is very important because nobody else says kekitaan other than Ibn Khaldun. So, I bet that it's either gonna be an objective or subjective. They will ask about what Ibn Khaldun says. So, if they ask about Ibn Khaldun, just make sure that you include the term semangat kekitaan. You can also include the word agak beragama if you want. If you're an overthinker like me and you do not want to miss any points, but if you want just want to pass, just remember the word kekitaan here. John Bodin, it's similar, kuasa tinggi also. And here, mempunyai kuasa tidak terbatas. Tidak terbatas means no limit. So you have unlimited power over your own country. Tunku Abdul Rahman says it is prinsip kebebasan dan keadilan yang sentiasa memperjuangkan kebajikan dan kesejahteraan rakyat. So Tunku Abdul Rahman is talking about how kedaulatan is based on freedom and fairness. Why is it saving? Okay, freedom and fairness. And Dr. Muhammad Saleh Abbas says that it is asas negara yang merdeka memiliki kebebasan pada peringkat antarabangsa dengan hak dan kuasa untuk mengatur urusan dalam negeri tanpa telunjuk asing. Long story short, he is saying that we have power over our own country and other countries do not have to get into our business. We can do things by ourselves now. So as I said, you don't have to write exactly what they say, but you must include the general points, which is Aristotle is kuasa tertinggi terikat oleh undang-undang. Ibn Khaldun is semangat kekitaan. John Bodin is kuasa tidak terbatas. And sifat kekal. I forgot to mention that. Kekal means permanent. Permanent power over your own country. Tunku Abdul Rahman, prinsip kebebasan dan keadilan untuk kesejahteraan rakyat. And Dr. Muhammad Saleh Abbas is memiliki kebebasan mengatur urusan tanpa telunjuk asing. And then jenis kedaulatan. This is the type of question that would probably come out in essay form. But and if it comes out in essay form, then you have to memorize like 1 or 2 points. But since it's not about essay, they will not ask about the meat of the topic. They only want to ask you about the general term of it. So kedaulatan tradisional, sistem pemerintahan berkuasa mutlak yang menguasai sepenuhnya tanpa segala urusan negara. Traditional kedaulatan is absolute power, sistem pemerintahan berkuasa mutlak, and you have complete control over your country. Kedaulatan modern, the main point here is it starts after keagungan and revolusi keagungan dan revolusi Perancis. If you want to know more about those, you can go to my channel and look at the first few videos. But again, if you are someone like me that is very worried, you can memorize the whole thing. But if you just want to pass, just memorize the first point. Dikaitkan dengan idea kemunculan negara bangsa selepas revolusi keagungan di England dan revolusi Perancis. But since for me, even if I'm overthinking, I do not consider this as an actual first point. This feels more like a secondary point. So I will also add this point. Dikaitkan dengan hak rakyat dan kerajaan perlembagaan. So we know here is about how we have an absolute power over our own country with a government system. And then kedaulatan for modern is hak rakyat, the democracy part of this. So I will memorize the yellow part as well. For undang-undang, kerajaan dan rakyat terikat oleh undang-undang yang perlu dipatuhi. So, I wrote here, tujuan kebat. What is tujuan kebat here for? The kebat questions in sejarah can also be found in the book. Even though they're kebat, you might assume you have to think about it yourself. But if you know how to understand this chapter, you will know that if they ask about mengapakah undang-undang sangat penting untuk negara, then you can write menjamin keadilan, dalam kehidupan masyarakat serta menjadikan negara aman, stabil dan makmur. That is actually a point. You see that my teacher wrote 3 points, but this is at least 2 points. This is 1, and this is 2. This is a supporting point for this, but my teacher says it's 3 points, so you can trust her if you want. Next, kedaulatan antarabangsa. Again, since we're talking about subjective here, just want to know the general meaning of that topic. Because they might ask, apakah kedaulatan antarabangsa? And then it'll be 2 marks. Normally, the first point is enough for you to get 2 marks. So, mengiktirafkan pertubuhan bangsa-bangsa bersatu, PBB or United Nations, terhadap sebuah negara yang tidak boleh dicabuli oleh negara lain. This term here means that the country cannot be taken over by other countries because it's already in the UN. It is considered its own state. Now, this part, right, this is the kesimpulan part. So I do not really think that it's a must to memorize this because there is no essay. However, there is going to be KBA questions in your subjective paper. So this can give you some points that you want to know more about. Next, ciri negara yang berdaulat. Again, this is usually an essay type of question, but since we're not talking about essays here, we're talking about subjective. Again, you just have to know the general points. So first, mempunyai pemerintahan. Why do you need pemerintahan? Untuk menjaga kestabilan politik, menjaga keamanan negara, menjaga pertahanan negara, dan menjaga ekonomi negara. It says here, bagi huraian. This is for the essay part. But again, if they're not asking for essay, they're asking for the main reasons why we need pemerintahan. That's right, this, and you should get 4 free marks. They might be in the same sentence, but my teacher herself is the head of department, and she told me this whole thing can be separated into 4 points. So take note of that. Another thing that is worth mentioning is something that you will end up knowing obviously, but the pemerintahan in Malaysia is by combining Raja Perlembagaan dan Demokrasi Berparlimen. That is something that you should know even without memorizing, because this thing is mentioned throughout all 3 chapters, Bab 1, Bab 2, Bab 3. So I don't think I will be mentioning it much here, but I will mention it more in the other chapters. Next is sempadan. Sempadan means borderline. So you need to know garis pemisah antara negeri atau negara. But I will also want you to memorize the tujuan just in case, because what if they ask what is the tujuan of sempadan? This thing can give you at least 2 or 3 marks. So yeah. Again, I'm not so sure. It's a low chance that this is coming out, but I will memorize it just in case. Next is mempunyai perundangan. Now, if you look at this point, sistem perundangan menjadi asas kepada peraturan negara. It's just repeating itself. So I will not consider this as the first point because it's just a way to extend the paragraph, I guess. This is the kepentingan memelihara kesejahteraan, menjamin keadilan dan melindungi rakyat. And then again, similar to how the Raja Perlembagaan dan Demokrasi Berparlimen is, this parliament thing is also going to be mentioned a lot in Bab 1, Bab 2, Bab 3. So this is generally important throughout the whole thing. So I'm pretty sure you don't have to memorize from this text, but it's just worth mentioning that parliament is the one that creates the rules. Menggubal perundangan, menentukan sistem perundangan. They are the ones that are writing the rules for us. Lastly, rakyat. So rakyat, there isn't actually much to mention about. This rakyat merupakan penduduk di sebuah negara. This is a very weak point. The thing is, right, rakyat have an identity, and that identity is proven throughout multiple things. We have the pelbagai kaum, we have agama, and adat resam. Adat resam means our own traditions, and we are all connected through a few things. For example, we have the same national flag. We have the same bahasa. We have the rukun negara. So yeah, I forgot to mention about this thing here. This bukti negara kita berdaulat. If they're going to ask a KBA question about why is our negara berdaulat, first of all, you have to mention that we have kemerdekaan, and then we have our own identity. For example, we have our symbol, we have negaraku, and we have our own system, undang-undang sendiri, and sistem demokrasi berparlimen. But yeah, since again this is not going to be essay, the most safest thing that you can go for is knowing the points, pemerintahan, sempadan, perundangan rakyat. And if you know even if you know these things, that it will be fine if you it'll be fine for you to memorize like 1 point or 2. You don't have to memorize 3 for this thing. But just be I will play it safe. Again, this is where you can get some KBAT points from. It's not really that important to memorize, but if you aren't that good at KBAT, I will recommend you to read this kesimpulan. Now, kepentingan is the most usually when you see this kind, you will see I already here essay. But again, remember, we don't have an essay in here, so you don't have to go too hard on memorizing everything in here. Even in essay, you just memorize 2 or 3 points per point, or even 1 actually, depending on how big it is. But here, kepentingan, same with ciri-ciri. Normally, they will just ask you for the main points. Mempunyai pemerintahan, mempunyai sempadan, mempunyai perundangan, and mempunyai rakyat. And it's similar here. Kepentingan untuk keberkesanan pentadbiran, kemakmuran ekonomi, kesejahteraan sosial, dan kecemerlangan hubungan luar negara. So, yeah. Again, I will try and find a sentence that summarizes keberkesanan pentadbiran. So, keberkesanan pentadbiran means the effectiveness of your pentadbiran. I will write this point. Dasar pentadbiran negara dilaksanakan dengan berkesan melalui jemaah menteri dan kementerian yang kementerian yang berkaitan. But if you think this is more towards essay, then I will write this point. Pengagihan kuasa mewujudkan keberkesanan pentadbiran. The reason why our pentadbiran is so effective is because we have a division of power. Like we have one jabatan that does pendidikan, one that does kesihatan, one is keselamatan, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot of people handling our country, and it causes them to only be able to focus on one thing, so they don't have to worry about other stuff. Kemakmuran ekonomi. The thing you have to mention is that the kerajaan has tried to make sure that our economy is safe, our economy is stable, and one of the things that we need to have our economy is stable is for our people, for our penduduk, to have a stable life, to have a life like without any water problems, without any problems with internet, and so on and so forth. They are really doing a good job at it in Semenanjung, but in any way actually. But at least they're trying. Kerajaan merancang untuk melakukan pelbagai usaha untuk meningkatkan taraf hidup rakyat berbilang kaum di Malaysia. Kesejahteraan sosial, socializing. So, why do we need the socializing? It's because if we want a very happy kerajaan, we need happy country, happy rakyat. We need our rakyat to be very happy with each other. So we need the socializing. What else? Okay, melahirkan generasi yang berilmu dan berkemahiran melalui pendidikan. Another thing is that throughout the education system, if we get better education, it will be better for our future, because remember that the remaja is basically the key to the future of this country. So if you as a teenager do not get enough education, you will not be able to contribute to the country in the future. This is extra point here about Rukun Negara, which you might want to take a look at. Rukun Negara diperkenalkan untuk memupuk semangat perpaduan. Okay, so basically Rukun Negara is to make sure that everyone is working together, sticking together, no conflict. So yeah, I wouldn't really be focusing too much on the points here. I just know that kesejahteraan sosial is one of the kepentingan. And lastly, kecemerlangan hubungan luar negara. Kecemerlangan hubungan luar negara is how good our country is at socializing at making relationships with other countries. So we talked about the UN. Then now, I would like to mention about Commonwealth. Commonwealth is ex-British countries. So Malaysia menikmati berbagai faedah dan kelebihan dalam usaha mempertahankan kedaulatan. What does this mean? Malaysia has an advantage in being recognized as a country, because the Commonwealth, it is part of the Commonwealth, and that which means that British recognizes that Malaysia is no longer its country, and because of that, Malaysia can be involved in other countries' problems, and it also can ask other countries for help in certain things. Basically, Malaysia is one of those best buddies in the Commonwealth, where if you will help them if you want to, but you will not be attacked by other countries. So like we have our own voice. We're not silenced by the world because we are our own country, so we have our own voice. That's basically what this kecemerlangan hubungan luar negara is. We are making friends outside our country. Lastly, langkah mempertahankan kedaulatan. This is another SAOD question. I wish there were essays from this, because this is the easiest one to write essay in, but there isn't. So you see that this is this pemerintah and rakyat thing. Pemerintah, rakyat. I wouldn't really focus much on those pemerintah and rakyat stuff. Maybe just 1 point for each. But really, I would it's better if you just talk about mewujudkan kestabilan politik, kemakmuran ekonomi, perpaduan kaum, and also membawa patriotisme. So again, since we're talking about subjective here, if they were to ask about the langkah, it's most likely that you just have to write the points: 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, 4 point. So to be honest, you don't really have to memorize this. The pemerintah and rakyat thing, however, that might come out in objective, or they might come out as a specific subjective question. Like, sebagai pemerintah, bagaimanakah awak akan membawa patriotisme? So, for me, I will use general knowledge. Like, if you want kestabilan politik, you don't want rasuah. You don't want any perselisihan antara kaum. So that's for pemerintah. How about for rakyat? Rakyat, you need to make sure that you respect your own kerajaan negara, because if not, then the country will be unstable, and you also want to follow the rules. Why? Because if you don't follow the rules, then the country will be in trouble. Then the politic will also be unstable. So ada one perpaduan kaum. If you really have no points, you can just go with the melaksanakan campaign, melaksanakan program untuk memupuk perpaduan kaum. Rakyat. For rakyat, if we're talking about perpaduan kaum, we want to share our identity. We want to share our bahasa kebangsaan. We want to share our rukun negara, that we can have we can work together. And again, if you really don't know, melibatkan diri in those campaigns. If you don't know what to write, you can just say you want to get involved in a campaign about perpaduan kaum, because that's where people tend to work together. Patriotism, same thing. Talking about patriotism, you will think immediately about Hari Kemerdekaan. And who is the one doing the Hari Kemerdekaan? It is the kerajaan, the pemerintah. Rakyat, you can say that you want to go to the sambutan Hari Kemerdekaan. And another thing is about patriotism is basically about loving your own country. So you want to respect everything that is related to your country. Rukun negara, jata negara, jalur gemilang negaraku. And bukan pertahanan negara. This is the one that is harder to think about. For pemerintah, it's quite easy. You just have to buy equipment, memodalkan aset ketenteraan. For rakyat, the easiest one to write is be willing to sacrifice. I don't think most people will actually sacrifice themselves, but it is a point. It is still a point. And again, this purple box, you don't have to write anything about it. And I guess that's all from me. Just remember, when it comes to this purple or even these blue boxes, it is basically a kesimpulan, a conclusion on what the whole chapter is. So if you want any K-Mat ideas, go for it. And lastly, you want to look at these questions here. I don't think this one is very important because it's bukti. But if it comes to those K-Mat questions, let me just see. This one, kedaulatan negara bergantung kepada warganya yang bersatu. Buktikan. This is another buktikan question, but it's K-Mat. They're asking, why do we have to work together for kedaulatan negara? So these are all KBAP questions. I want you to look at all of these texts and see look at all of these questions and try and do them yourself, because even though they're not in essay, they are subjective still as KBAP. So and also one more thing, check BAP 1, BAP 2, and BAP 3 are all interrelated. So even though the questions might be from BAP 2, the KBAP might be from BAP 1, because BAP 1 and BAP 2 are similar. BAP 2 and BAP 3 are also similar. It's all about the pemerintahan, and pemerintahan ini kedaulatan. Kedaulatan is in BAP 1. So if you want to improve your sejarah KBAP questions, I would recommend you to read all of those questions and try and do them yourself. Not only that, not only on those parts, but also in your exercises, like your ABCDs, objective. Sometimes they will actually ask from here. So I would recommend you to do this if you're in Chongqing, because normally they will use these questions as well. And yeah, this is what my teacher asked me to do. I did all of this already. Yeah.